You want the truth, Neo? You're going to have to follow me.
Come here.
No. I think it's out.
Come
here.
Right here.
Hello, my favorite Hollywood fans. We've all been a part of Hollywood's biggest trend for the last decade or so, which is the inclusion of post-credit scenes.
Who the hell are you? Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D.
We did get a few of these sequences even before the MCU started. But thanks to Marvel and their popularity, most movies and studios decided to add post-credit scenes to tease sequels and set up the future.
Dominic Toretto. You don't know me. You're about to.
But today we're gonna look into a few scenes that made us sit for a few extra minutes. And in exchange for that, they didn't really offer us anything great.
Tony.
I mean, they wasted our time deliberately, or in some cases, accidentally.
You're making me beat up grass!
Some of the recent movies added scenes after the credits that amounted to absolutely nothing.
That does it!
Marvel sometimes has this knack of giving us a gag at the end of their film.
You're welcome, Canada.
Spider-Man Homecoming, for instance, used Captain America to make a fool out of us. It was smart on their part, and I wouldn't call it a time waste, as the self-awareness of the scene was funny. But the scenes that I'm going to talk about in the video should really boil your blood now. And right off the bat, I'm going to start with The Matrix Resurrections. 2022's Matrix 4 was a big missed opportunity from Warner Bros. It was very meta, and that was the good part about it. But the fans didn't really get what they expected out of it. Sure, the CGI was good, but they had Keanu Reeves, who had shown through John Wick that he can still shoot some crazy action sequences. And yet, he got to do absolutely nothing in this one.
I'm done fighting.
After making the fans angry with that, we got a post-credit scenes that wasted everyone's time.
What the hell is he doing?
In it, game developers within the Matrix were brainstorming ideas to generate maximum interest in a new Matrix game. They suggested a series of Matrix-themed cat videos called the Catrix.
Series of videos that we call the Catrix.
There was no real setup for the future. The director has claimed that there are no plans for Matrix 5, and after the results that Resurrections has produced, I'd say that the franchise is actually dead. So there was really no point to make us sit for that horrible post-credit scene, which wasn't even funny.
You're absolutely right.
Number 2, Avengers Endgame. You cannot fault this movie for a lot. It was majestic and extremely overwhelming. One could argue that by making us sit through the credits, the movie actually allowed us to process the whole final act. But even then, the credits just ended with the sound of a hammer hitting metal, which reminded us of this scene from Iron Man. There was nothing else, no footage. This was okay, considering that after the first couple of days of its release, most people would become aware that there's no real scene, so they could have left. But the real time waste came with Avengers Endgame's re-release. It had to beat Avatar, so it was released in the theaters once again with the promise of a new scene at the end.
Assemble.
And what we got was an incompletely rendered Smart Hulk playing superhero, saving a few people from a deadly fire. I'd say that even though it didn't add anything to the story, it still would have been okay if the CGI was complete. But if people went to the theaters again to specially watch just one more scene, then they were clearly robbed.
Thanks, brother. Thank you very much. Enjoy this show.
Instead, we should have got the deleted scene where all the Avengers took a knee in respect of Tony Stark. This tribute not only would have done justice to the re-release, but it would have attracted even more people to watch the film again.
You're an ass. I'm an ass. I gave you the money back.
Up next, we've got 2019's Hellboy. Not just the post-credit scenes, but this entire Hellboy reboot was a total waste of money and time. It's good that David Harbour still has his MCU and Stranger Things roles, or else Hellboy would have ended his career.
It still fits.
It was arguably the worst movie ever made.
Who's Captain Delicious Pass?
And it still had the audacity to set up a sequel with not one, but two scenes. In the mid-credits scene, Hellboy was consoled at the Buttonhole's grave by the ghost of his hero, Lobster Johnson. Then in the post-credits scene, Baba Yaga enlisted an unseen force to seek out Hellboy with the promise of allowing him to finally die. The scene will now lead nowhere, and I sincerely thank God that we won't ever have to see the payoff to it.
And that is...
I will finally let you die.
Number 4, X-Men Apocalypse. Back in 2016, we got the largely bad sequel of X-Men Days of Future Past. Oscar Isaac did well enough as Apocalypse, but the writing is what really failed him in the entire film. Ultimately, we got the post-credits scene, which teased the arrival of Mr. Sinister as the name Essex Corps appeared on the screen. But Dark Phoenix was an even worse film. It never gave us the payoff for Mr. Sinister's setup either. But maybe it is okay that Fox spoiled a few minutes of ours with Apocalypse's post-credits scene, instead of actually asking us to spend more money on a poor rendition of Mr. Sinister by involving him in another bad X-Men movie. We have Disney to thank for this, as they brought Fox. Now hopefully, we'll get a good Mr. Sinister in the MCU. Snake Eyes. The last 2 G.I. Joe movies were heavy on the action front, and they were good fun to watch at least once. But we never got a threequel, and the higher-ups at Paramount and Hasbro decided to start with a clean slate. Things began with 2021's Snake Eye G.I. Joe Origins. It is another contender for the worst action movie ever made. Good things were expected out of Henry Golding's Snake Eyes, but for a big budget movie with grand action sequences and CGI monstrosities, it was way below average. The film lost a lot of money, and the critics absolutely hated it. As a result, the final setup of Storm Shadow becoming the big bad of future movies was a total waste of our time. In fact, the entire movie was a waste of time, resources, and talent. So, it's good that the franchise is probably dead for another decade now.
Call me Storm Shadow.
Up next we've got Transformers: The Last Knight. 2 out of the first 4 Michael Bay Transformers movies went past $1 billion. But after part 3 and 4, people were just done with the Basums. And Transformers 5 was more of the same. It retconned several elements of the past 4 films and didn't really have anything new to offer besides the same old double Bs. Babes and booms.
What am I doing here?
Yeah, why is she here?
So The Last Knight turned out to be the lowest grossing Transformers film.
Cade, I have failed you.
Its post-credit scenes had Quintessa, in human form, who was played by Gemma Chan. She was set up as a future villain, but again, that scene will never amount to anything. Before The Last Knight, Michael Bay claimed that he had plans for 14 more Transformer movies. He was clearly setting up at least one more film with The Last Knight's post-credit scene. But obviously, all his plans died as the franchise was rebooted with Bumblebee. And now we're getting Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, which has nothing to do with any of the past Michael Bay movies. The same thing happened with Pirates of the Caribbean 5. The franchise reached its saturation point with the 5th installment of Disney's money-making Pirates franchise. 2017's Dead Man Tell No Tales became the 2nd lowest grossing film, and as a result, Disney had to change directions. So ultimately, the setup for Pirates 6 was a total lost cause. We got a post-credit scene where Will and Elizabeth were approached by a resurrected Davy Jones while they were sleeping. Will woke up, only to find out that there was no one in the bedroom, although there were traces of a few white barnacles on the floor. So, we could have got a Pirates 6 with Davy Jones going up against Will once again. But nothing is going to come out of that, as Johnny Depp is clearly not going to be hired by anyone now. And Disney is moving forward with a female-led Pirates movie starring Margot Robbie. So, all that setup went down the drain.
Oh, wow. I'm a princess.
The same thing happened with Justice League. The Whedon cut and the Snyder cut showed us 2 versions of the meeting between Deathstroke and Lex Luthor. Whedon was setting up an alliance between Lex and Slade in order to form the Injustice League for the sequel.
Shouldn't we have a league of our own?
Meanwhile, the scene in Zack Snyder's Justice League directly set up the conflict between Batman and Deathstroke.
You volunteered to destroy the Bat free of charge. Why the pro bono work?
It's personal.
Let me guess. An eye for an eye.
It was a lead into Ben Affleck's canceled solo film. And we actually got this as a part of Snyder's 22-minute epilogue, which also set up the next 2 Justice League movies. Superman was going to turn evil for a while after the death of Lois and his child. Batman would have assembled a team of heroes and villains to take him on. And ultimately, in Justice League 3, we would have seen an all-out war against the armies of Darkseid after a bunch of time travel fixes. But sadly, none of those scenes are going to be paid off. Snyder and his vision are not in WB's scheme of things. Affleck has claimed that The Flash will be his final outing as the Caped Crusader. Joe Manganiello has confirmed that all of Deathstroke's plans have died. And we all know that The Flash is rebooting the DCEU by writing out Superman, Batman, and probably even Cyborg. Instead, we're getting Michael Keaton's Batman as a franchise regular, along with Sasha Calle's Supergirl. So, all those setups and the time spent on them have been wasted. Before Justice League, we got the Power Rangers. Lionsgate and their partners at Saban Brands wanted to start a Power Rangers franchise in 2017. But sadly, their modernized take on these colored heroes was poorly received. It had a bizarre storyline, which got bad critical and commercial results.
I was kind of expecting a little more.
And then Hasbro ended up becoming the owners of Power Rangers. So, the post-credit scenes of 2017's Power Rangers was really nothing but a fruitless activity. It teased the arrival of Tommy Oliver, as we saw his chair with a green jacket on it. Then there was an explosion. Ultimately, it was an all-for-nothing scene that did not have anything to offer us. Now finally, I'm going to talk about Venom: Let There Be Carnage. The first and the second Venom are highly similar, but the biggest specialty about Let There Be Carnage was its final scene.
80 billion light years of hive knowledge across universes would explode your tiny little brain.
It had huge implications as we got to know about the symbiote hive mind. Sony's Spider-Man universe was connected to the MCU in a big way as Venom got pulled out of his universe. But then, he didn't show up in No Way Home, and we only saw him in the post-credits scene where he was pulled back to Sony's universe after learning about the MCU. You could say his short multiversal trip did have something to gain, but its main purpose was to hype us for Venom's involvement in No Way Home, and none of that happened. The whole hype around Venom 2's final scene amounted to nothing, as Tom Holland's Spidey won't go out of MCU either. So I hope that everyone who got excited at the end of Venom 2 would get something out of it in Part 3. Or else, it was all in vain.
I love you too!
Okay, that's all for now. Which other post-credit scenes made you guys angry? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button if you enjoyed the video. And don't forget to check out some more fun content on our channel. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!